I traveled into a book with my bestie. She's the simp for the scheming second male lead, while I'm the stand-in for the Yandere villain. On the surface, we're both pining unrequited love, but behind the scenes, we're splurging like crazy together. After 3 years of living the high life, the real white moonlight female lead returned. Upon learning that both the second male lead and the villain would be infatuated with the female lead, my best friend packed a small bag and knocked on my door late at night. I've saved up enough money. What about you? Me? I'm still a bit short, but I can spend yours. So we both faked our deaths and ran away together. 3 years later, my best friend unfortunately ran into her ex-husband. I quickly said, "I'll cover for you. You run." But as soon as I turned around, I bumped into a solid chest. The Yandere villain unhurriedly untied his tie and bound my hands. You can talk about running away when you're actually able to. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. Scott suddenly returned while Lena was showing me her newly purchased pink diamond ring. When that Scott-exclusive Maybach drove into the yard, Lena hurriedly pushed me. Quick, quick, hide. I felt like a frantic adulterer caught in the act and quickly hid in the wardrobe. No sooner had I hidden than Scott pushed the door open and walked in. Just moments ago, Lena had been happily flaunting her wealth, but now her eyes were slightly red, looking as if she had suffered a grief beyond words. Hearing Scott open the door, Lena gave a bitter smile and said, "So you still remember to come home?" Scott strode purposefully over to Lena. He looked down at Lena and said, "Maggie is missing." "Lena, I've told you. Maggie is just an ordinary girl I'm sponsoring. The feud between the Stanfords and the Whites should be directed at me. Don't involve innocent people." Lena understood, her eyes widening in disbelief. "You think I kidnapped her?" Scott closed his eyes briefly. "Maggie disappeared after calling you. I can't help but suspect you." The phone rang at that moment. Scott answered it, glanced at Lena. "Okay, I'll be right there." Scott turned and walked out the door. Lena rushed forward uncontrollably and grabbed his hand. "Scott, it really wasn't me." Scott's eyes were as cold as ice. "I'll investigate. Until the results come out, I won't see you again." Lena's tears fell instantly. "Can you leave tomorrow instead?" Her eyes were red, her tone pleading. "Today is our wedding anniversary. Could you just stay with me for one night?" Scott remained silent for 2 seconds before finally pulling his hand away from Lena's grasp. "Sorry. The police have a lead on Maggie. I have to go check it out." As the door closed, Lena cried out desperately, "Scott, come back." We stood in silence for 2 seconds together, listening to Scott's footsteps fade into the distance. "Oh my God, he's finally gone." Lena wiped the tears off her face and let me out of the wardrobe. I marveled. "Damn, sis. That was some killer acting." Lena rolled her eyes. "Cut the crap. Things are looking bad. We need to figure something out. The female lead has already appeared and started causing trouble. My partner has begun tormenting me, and yours probably isn't far behind." I said, "What do you mean?" "We have to run," Lena said firmly. "If we don't run now, we might earn this money but not live to spend it." Both Lena and I are transmigrated into this book. She is the devoted follower of the scheming second male lead Scott, married to him through a family alliance. After 3 years of marriage, Scott remains cold as ice toward her. I, on the other hand, am the stand-in for the Yandere antagonist Victor. Victor has kept me in his villa for 3 years, solely because my appearance strikingly resembles his youthful white moonlight. Regarding our respective roles, Lena and I have no particular dissatisfaction. After all, the Stanford family hails from political circles with a formidable background. No one dares to offend them, and Victor dominates both the underworld and legitimate circles, stopping at nothing. A mad dog everyone fears. If there's one common trait, it's wealth. Immense wealth. For the past 3 years, Lena and I have been putting on a show of unrequited love and heartbreak while secretly spending lavishly and having the time of our lives. But now the situation has changed. The female lead Maggie has returned. According to the plot, Lena's husband Scott is Maggie's most loyal protector. As for my boyfriend Victor, it goes without saying, Maggie is his unattainable love. He would slay gods and Buddhas for her, even trade his own life for Maggie's happiness. If we don't leave now, it'll be too late, Lena said. Maggie is no pushover. She deliberately called me, then disappeared, making Scott think I kidnapped her. Scott is one thing. At worst he'll just give me the cold shoulder. But Victor, that lunatic is capable of anything. I shuddered. That's right. Back when Victor took me to one of his gatherings, just because some guy glanced at my chest a few times, Victor had his legs broken and threw him into the open sea. I'm just a stand-in. Yet Victor went that far off the deep end. If he really thinks I hurt his beloved Maggie, even 8 lives wouldn't be enough to make up for it. Go. I must go. Hurting my feelings is one thing, but threatening my personal safety is absolutely unacceptable. Lena saw my determination and asked, "Have you saved up enough money?" I shook my head. No. But I know you must have saved enough. And I plan to spend yours. Lena. Fortunately, she's my best friend. Lena was already prepared to support me. After confirming that the funds were sufficient, we began discussing our escape plan. After discussing all options, only one plan seems feasible. That is, to fake our deaths. There's no other way. Over these 3 years, Lena and I have become the closest women to the 2 most powerful figures in City J. We know too many secrets of the Stanford and Stewart families. Even if Scott and Victor let us go, City J has too many other eyes watching us. Who dies first? I asked Lena. She said, "Me first. You later." Why can't I die first? I protested. I'd rather go first. As everyone knows, the one who dies later has to clean up the mess left by the former. Lena said, "Rock, paper, scissors." She won. I said, "Best 2 out of 3. She won again. I snapped angrily. Fine. Fine. You go die first." Lena strutted off triumphantly to make her death preparations. I went home to pack my things. The most valuable items were all hidden in the basement. But I never expected that as soon as I entered the basement, someone blindfolded me. Victor used his tie to cover my eyes and whispered in my ear, "Where have you been?" There was a faint smell of blood on him. I couldn't tell if he had just killed someone. Even after 3 years, I still instinctively feel a bit afraid of Victor. My voice trembling slightly, "I went to buy you a gift." I opened my hand, revealing a silver brooch shaped like a rose resting quietly on my palm. It wasn't anything particularly expensive, but Victor seemed genuinely happy. He picked me up and placed me on the piano. "What would you like to hear today?" I obediently replied, "I love whatever you play." 10 years ago, Victor's father hated his son so much that he locked him in a mental institution. Victor was abused and electrocuted daily, and he contemplated suicide countless times, until he discovered a rose garden in the mental hospital, where there was an abandoned piano. He played the piano there every day, and a girl would come to listen outside the wall. That girl was Maggie. After I came to Victor's side, Victor planted a garden of roses for me. He had me wear a white dress while listening to him play the piano. Today, Victor's playing seemed restless. Midway through, he abruptly stopped with agitation, grabbed my calf, and pulled me, sitting on the piano, into his embrace. I landed heavily on the keys, the chaotic notes drowning out my startled gasp. Victor started kissing me, his kisses aggressive and possessive, his breath as chaotic as his emotions. He said, "Next time, don't leave without my permission." I answered obediently enough. Yet Victor still didn't seem to feel secure enough. He tore open my dress and crushed me in his embrace. I have to say, I'm a bit luckier than Lena. Lena only enjoys spending money. My pleasures are on a more sophisticated level. But I can't let Victor know. When he embraced me with a light sheen of sweat and kissed my cheek, I suddenly burst into tears. Victor kissed away my tears and asked in a low voice, "Why are you crying?" I said, "Do you love me?" Victor's expression turned slightly cold. For the past 3 years, he has granted almost every request of mine, spoiling me to no end. But when it comes to status, both of us have tacitly avoided mentioning it. I'm just a substitute. Apart from looks, the most important quality for a substitute is knowing one's place. Pestering a sugar daddy about how much genuine affection he has is an extremely immature behavior. Victor remained silent. Silence was already the best answer. Yet, immature as I was, I pressed further. "Victor, am I your favorite woman?" Victor stood up and put on his clothes, watching him about to leave. My tears fell. "Where are you going?" Victor paused. He turned back, his expression cold, as if the person who had been passionately intimate with me moments ago wasn't him. "Natalie, you've crossed the line. A canary has no right to ask about its patron's whereabouts. I've been doing well these past 3 years." Yet, as if unwilling to give up, today of all days, after Victor left, I called him many more times. He rejected every single call. I breathed a sigh of relief. Great. Victor is going to give me a little punishment. Then for at least 3 days, he won't answer my calls or come to this villa to see me. This significantly increases the safety of fleeing. I quickly gathered my valuables and secretly moved them to a safe place. Late at night, Lena came to me. "Are you ready yet?" I said, "All right." Lena was still worried about me and checked around one more time. "Good." She nodded in satisfaction. "Now you can go die." Many significant events happened on this day. First, Scott's people found the unconscious Maggie inside an abandoned building. Maggie was holding a bead in her hand. Scott took one look, and his pupils instantly constricted. He recognized that bead. A year ago on their wedding anniversary, he bought a gift for Lena, purely to save face for the families. It was a traditional gown, handcrafted over 3 years by an intangible cultural heritage inheritor, adorned with intricate embroidery and pearls each worth a fortune. Maggie was holding one of those very pearls from that dress. "Mr. Scott, could it really have been the madam who sent someone to do this?" The assistant murmured beside him. Everyone knew it was just a marriage of convenience between the two families. Yet Lena loved Scott to the point of obsession. A woman's jealousy is the most terrifying thing. When Lena saw Scott being cold to her but gentle with Maggie, how could she resist targeting Maggie? Scott closed his eyes. "Let's go to the hospital first." On the way, Maggie woke up. When she realized it was Scott who had saved her, tears kept falling, soaking her white dress. "Mr. Scott," she said, "I'm very grateful for everything you've done for me, but we shouldn't meet again." Scott said gently, "Don't be afraid. Who tied you up there? Did you see the kidnapper's face?" Maggie paused and shook her head. "No, I can't say." She bit her lip, her eyes misty with tears. "Mr. Scott, everyone says you hold immense power in City J. But only I know the many hardships you've had to endure against your will. I understand how much the White family has contributed to your career. So, you and MS. Lena really shouldn't have any more conflicts because of me." Scott's hand tightened imperceptibly. "It's Lena. It actually is Lena." Scott initially still held onto a glimmer of hope, wishing this wasn't done by Lena. But now, that last shred of hope has vanished. Maggie observed Scott's expression, with tears in her eyes. She timidly said, "Mr. Scott, please don't blame Ms. Lena. She did this because she loves you too much." Just then, the phone rang. Scott could barely contain his anger. Hello, is this Mr. Scott?" I was startled by the anger in Scott's voice. But then, gripping the phone anxiously, I said, "I'm a friend of Lena. Lena is in the hospital now, and her condition is very serious. Can you come quickly?" On the other end, Scott remained silent. He said, "What trick is she playing again?" I grew increasingly anxious. "What are you talking about? Lena just got into a car accident, and her condition is critical." "Enough," Scott said coldly. "She's pulled this stunt many times before. Every time she makes a mistake, she either pretends to be sick or hurts herself, trying to soften my heart. Did you cause this car accident because you realized you'd gone too far this time and the scandal was about to break? Please tell her to see a doctor if she's injured." "I'm not a physician, Scott," I shouted. But it was no use. The call was disconnected. Scott threw his phone aside and remained silent for a long time. Maggie asked considerately, "Did something happen to MS? Lena, maybe you should go see her first." "I'll be fine." Scott rubbed his temples irritably. "Don't worry about her." Maggie bit her lip and said considerately, "MS. Lena must be very scared right now. She just wants to see you. You're her husband. There's no conflict that can't be resolved." The more she persuaded, the colder Scott's expression became. "Maggie, don't worry," he said. "I won't favor her just because she's my wife. I will definitely give you justice in this matter." Maggie's tears hung on her eyelashes, trembling on the verge of falling. "Mr. Scott, you're so kind. Mr. Scott, are we going to hospital?" the driver asked. "This hospital is a private hospital jointly established by the Stanford and White families," Scott said coldly. "No. Go to the municipal one." Maggie realized Scott was avoiding meeting Lena. Scott would rather switch hospitals than drop by to see her. She lowered her head and smiled silently. Scott drove Maggie to the municipal hospital. After examining her, the doctor said Maggie had no major issues apart from some external injuries. However, she seemed to be severely traumatized, crying out and waking up immediately after falling asleep briefly. Maggie said tearfully to Scott, "Mr. Scott, please go attend to your matters first. Don't worry about me." Scott, who had initially wavered about whether to check on Lena, decided to stay after seeing Maggie's utterly pitiful expression. Maggie finally calmed down 2 days later. Scott turned on his personal phone when leaving the hospital. He expected to see dozens of Lena's messages and missed calls. But this time, there was nothing. Completely empty. Scott felt an inexplicable sense of strangeness. It was a feeling he had never experienced before. Scott wanted to calm this sensation, but after staying in the office for a long time, he still couldn't suppress it and ended up calling me. "Where is Lena?" Scott asked me coldly. "Put her on the phone." I remained silent for a very long time. "I know you're Lena's friend." Scott was already impatient. "Tell Lena to come see me immediately." "Lena is dead," I said softly. There was a long silence on the other end. After a moment, I heard Scott let out a derisive laugh. "Stop playing these games with me." His voice turned serious immediately. "Tell her I've already calmed Maggie down. Maggie promised not to call the police or tell anyone about this. Lena doesn't need to hide anymore. Tell her to come see me immediately." I didn't say anything more, just slowly recited an address. "If you're so eager to see her, come find her here." It was 11 o'clock at night. Scott found me in the morning hall. I sat there in a daze, hearing Scott's footsteps. I turned my head mechanically. "You're here." Scott remained silent. He looked down at what I was holding. It was an urn. "What is this?" I slowly lowered my head and caressed the urn. "Didn't I tell you? She was in a car accident." My face was expressionless, only my eyes swollen and red. "If you had come immediately after my call, you could have seen her one last time. Now, it's all too late." Scott's hands began to tremble. I interrupted him. "I know. You just suspected she was the one who kidnapped Maggie. It doesn't matter. Go investigate. Whatever the result, it has nothing to do with Lena anymore." I picked up the urn, turned around, and brushed past Scott. He called out to me, "Wait. She was my wife." She I stopped in my tracks. You want me to give you her ashes? Is that it? I laughed, tears rolling down in large drops. Impossible. Scott. Lena was trapped in the Stanford family by her love for you when she was alive. Now that she's dead, she can finally stop loving you. I'm taking her away to set her free. I looked at Scott's face and ultimately couldn't suppress my anger. Please stop calling her your wife. After all, you are utterly unworthy of being her husband. I left with that urn of ashes. I couldn't possibly give it to Scott, because inside, Lena only perfunctorily grabbed a few boxes of loose powder from her vanity and sprinkled them in. It wasn't until I quickly searched online and told her that ashes aren't actually powdery that she hurriedly tossed in some leftover small bones. I walked to the riverbank and scattered those loose powders and rib bones into the river. Lena, you're free now. I choked out the words. I knew Scott was watching my retreating figure. After scattering the ashes, I drove away in my own car. From beginning to end, I didn't give Scott another glance. Counting the time, Victor should be looking for me by now. He punished me for 3 days. And now it's just about time. But Victor didn't come for me. I know it's because Maggie went to see him. Scott is now ignoring Maggie because of Lena's death. Given Maggie's style, she will undoubtedly move on to her next target immediately. She will come to Victor's side and reveal her identity to him. With the little girl outside the rose garden finally returned, Victor would have no mood to care about an imposter like me. I drove my car onto the Cross River Bridge. City J in this area. The big shots have divided their territories among themselves. The place where I just scattered the ashes actually belongs to Victor's territory. Now, I've entered Scott's territory. Sitting by the river, I mentally reviewed the items I had left behind in the villa. Silver rose brooch. The last gift I gave to Victor. Suicide note. To tell Victor the first loved him. Depression diagnosis, forged. To indicate the cause of my death. After finishing the review, I called Victor. He answered with a slight drunkenness. Hello. Beside him, a girl complained coquettishly. Victor. Who is this? It was Maggie. I ignored Maggie's voice and calmly began my performance. Victor. Don't worry. I'm not calling to pester you. I just wanted to say thank you. When I first came to this city, I had nothing. You gave me a place to live, sheltered me from the storm, and even gave me the illusion of being loved. Victor's voice sounded a bit different. He said, Natalie, where are you? I calmly said, I'm also happy that someone can love you in my place from now on. Remember to drink less alcohol, and get your old knee injury checked regularly. Natalie, where are you? I'm coming to find you now. This was the first time I heard Victor's voice lose control. I laughed as the wind rushed in. Victor, goodbye. I tossed my phone into the river and leaped in after it. The river water rushed into my throat. The next second, the buoyancy layer in my clothes activated. My back surfaced as I bit down on the oxygen tube of a specialized mini aqualung, drifting along with the river current. After floating for about an hour, I bumped into a kayak. Looking up, Lena sat there gripping a paddle. You're fucking finally here. Lena panted breathlessly. Get in and paddle already. Trying to kill me or what? I quickly climbed onto the kayak. Just like that, Lena and I, one paddling on the left and the other on the right, rowed our little boat of friendship away from City J. It wasn't until much later that we learned. On the night we were huffing and puffing as we rowed, City J was turned upside down. Scott, after regaining his senses, frantically searched for me with his men. I was Lena's only companion when she died. Scott wanted to know, Lena, if she had left any words for him, if she resented him deeply. By the river, Scott met Victor, who was also frantically searching for me. Over the past few years, Scott had seen Victor at various occasions, big and small, but he had never seen Victor like this. Victor sat by the river, his expression seemingly calm yet utterly deranged. Rescue boats shuttled back and forth on the river. Someone approached and stood before Victor, trembling, Yan Master Chi. Victor spoke. His voice hoarse beyond recognition. You've found the body. Haven't you? No. Nothing was found. Victor stood up and kicked the person into the river. Then fucking keep looking. Scott called out to him. Victor. Victor didn't even lift an eyelid. As if he hadn't heard. Scott took a deep breath. Victor. I understand how you're feeling right now. But we're too close to the estuary here. It's been 7 hours already. The body is most likely lost. Victor raised his eyes to look at Scott. His pupils completely bloodshot. Scott's bodyguards behind him were startled and quickly moved to shield Scott. In that instant, they thought Victor might have gone mad. This bastard with underworld origins might even dare to kick Scott. Victor didn't kick Scott. He just stared at Scott and said word by word, Scott, what do you mean by saying you understand how I feel? Your wife is dead and gone. But my Natalie isn't. Each word struck like a dagger. Scott's face turned deathly pale. Natalie jumped into the river in your territory. Victor said, if she's not found, I'll hold you accountable too. Scott, the expressions of the bodyguards around him changed instantly. Victor was different from Scott. The Stanford family came from a political background, and Scott always cared about reputation and appearances. Victor was different. He was a complete mad dog through and through. If he said he would settle accounts with the Stanford family, he truly meant it. Scott rubbed his temples and called his assistant over. Let's mobilize our fleet to join the search. That night, the riverbank was brightly lit. The Stanford and Stewart families' boats shuttled back and forth across the river. But there was never any trace of her, dead or alive. Scott went back first, saying the White family was still waiting for his explanation. Victor remained sitting blankly by the river. He murmured, Natalie, you're definitely not dead, right? Victor and Scott's reactions, whatever they may be, have nothing to do with me and Lena anymore. 1,000 miles away in J City, 2 more happy and beautiful wealthy women have emerged. Happy days always pass by especially quickly, and in the blink of an eye. We've already been in J City for 3 years. Right now, Lena and I are enjoying life in a private room at the nightclub. A group of male models surrounded us, each one handsome and talented in singing and dancing. Anyone unaware might think this was some kind of boy band audition. Lena said, look at that one. Doesn't he look a bit like Victor? I was startled for a moment, then rolled my eyes and said, like hell he does. That one looks more like Scott. After the joke, a dark cloud inexplicably passed through my heart. Over the past 3 years, Victor has been completely silent. Scott, on the other hand, has been making occasional news. At Lena's funeral, he knelt before the White family to beg for forgiveness. He established a charitable fund named after Lena. Lena, after leaving Scott, who had never touched alcohol before, started drinking heavily and was taken away by an ambulance multiple times. As for Victor, there was no news from him at all, from beginning to end. I should be happy about this. It proves that I was indeed an insignificant stand-in to him, and my death would mean nothing. But for some reason, there's always a tense string of unease tugging at my heart. Fortunately, the 2 mixed-race models by my side were quick to read the room and immediately stepped forward to showcase their talents. Sister, both of us can flex our pectoral muscles. You judge who can do it faster. I got intrigued. All right, I'll be fair and impartial. Over there. Lena rolled her eyes at me. Vulgar. She then turned to the male models and said, come on. Stretch out your hands. Let me read your palms. Over the past 3 years, the emptiness of having more money than she could spend led Lena to become obsessed with the occult. From zodiac signs and tarot to Chinese astrology and face reading, there was nothing she didn't dabble in. The one closest to Lena was a boy with strikingly clear and handsome features. Lena rarely kept the same male model by her side for more than 3 days. But this boy had stayed with Lena for a full 3 months. The boy is called Steven, a top student at the nearby university. It's said that after his father went bankrupt and accumulated a lot of debt, he came here to accompany people drinking to earn his tuition. Steven is very good-looking, with a cool demeanor, always wearing a white shirt and a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. He does look somewhat like a younger version of Scott, but Steven was different from Scott. When Lena held his hand and offered to read his palm, Steven's face flushed bright red. He didn't dare to look at Lena, his cool, pale skin turning pink. "Sis," Steven whispered, "there's something I need help with. Could you?" Lena said, "Are you short on money?" "No," Steven quickly replied, lowering his head and pointing outside the nightclub where a few young girls were sitting. Steven said there was a wealthy second-generation girl from their school who was pursuing him aggressively. He didn't want to agree, wishing only to focus on his studies. But the girl wouldn't believe him and waited outside the nightclub every day for him to finish work. Steven asked Lena if she could pretend to be his girlfriend to make this girl give up. Lena said, "Piece of cake." She stood up and confidently linked arms with Steven. Steven's face turned even redder. They walked together toward the direction of the rich second-generation girl. At first, it was a normal negotiation, but soon a group of people inexplicably started pulling and shoving each other. The rich second-generation girl was probably drunk, crying and shouting excitedly, pointing at Lena and yelling at Steven. "How could she be serious about you? Someone like her is clearly just playing with your feelings. I'm the one who truly loves you." As everyone knows, watching drama is one of humanity's innate traits. Even the DJ stopped playing music and joined the guests in stretching their necks to watch the spectacle. I was also enjoying the show from a distance, clutching my AD calcium milk. But suddenly, a chill ran down my spine. I couldn't quite put my finger on what I saw. It felt more like an eerie sensation, grabbing both my and Lena's bags. I rushed toward Lena. Lena was still acting professionally, gripping Steven's hand tightly as she said to the girl, "Whether you believe it or not, my feelings for Steven are genuine. I truly love him and want to marry him." As soon as she finished speaking, suddenly, Lena also froze. Her spine stiffened segment by segment. The light flickered, and in the distance, she saw a figure staring unblinkingly at her. All was silent. Scott stood in the shadows. Just now, Lena's words had reached Scott's ears without missing a single syllable. At this moment, he watched Lena and Steven holding hands, his pupils frozen like ice. "Want to get married?" Scott smiled, his voice like shattering ice. "Lena, is your last divorce even finalized yet?" As he spoke, the Stanford family's bodyguards had already sprung into action. They moved like silent fish slipping into water, approaching Lena through the crowd. Fortunately, I had already reached Lena's side. "What are you standing there for?" I grabbed Lena's hand. "Run." Glasses toppled, wine splashing everywhere. Together with Lena, we knocked over 4 tables, 3 waiters carrying trays, and 2 carts, sprinting forward as if our lives depended on it. Stanford's bodyguards were hot on our heels, closing in rapidly. We dashed into the underground parking garage. "Have you been drinking?" I asked Lena. "Haven't had the chance yet," Lena replied. "You?" "I didn't either." "Great. No one's drunk driving." I quickly rummaged through Lena's bag for her car keys, then tossed mine to her. "Go. Split up." Lena understood what I was trying to do. She took my car, and I took hers. I used myself as cover for her. "Natalie, stop dawdling. Hurry. No time left." I rushed into Lena's car and stomped on the accelerator. Scott came looking for Lena. Given his personality, he must have researched Lena beforehand. My car and Lena's set off at the same time. The Stanford family's main force would definitely come after this car registered under Lena's name. Sure enough, not long after I drove off, pursuers appeared in my rearview mirror. Leading the chase was actually a roaring Harley-Davidson motorcycle. The rider, wearing a helmet, clung tightly to my tail, moving so fast that sparks almost seemed to fly from beneath the wheels. Scott, where did he hire such desperados? This way of riding a motorcycle is completely reckless. Suddenly, my heart seemed to skip a beat. From what I know of Scott, he's not that crazy. There's only one person this crazy, and that's Victor. Looking at the figure on the motorcycle, how could I not recognize him? I stomped on the accelerator frantically, but we'd already hit the speed limit. Victor sped his bike ahead of me, skidding to a stop as if to block me, or perhaps to take us both down together. I had to slam on the brakes with all my might. The car stopped just a few millimeters away from Victor. My head hit the dashboard hard. The airbag deployed, and I passed out. The last moment of consciousness was Victor opening the car door and carrying me out. He whispered in my ear, "Natalie, you really couldn't bear to run me over." I couldn't answer him before plunging into endless darkness. I had a dream. In the dream, it was my first meeting with Victor. Back then, I had just transmigrated into this world and hadn't reunited with Lena yet. Life was a bit tough, and I had to work at a convenience store to earn tuition. Victor walked into the convenience store to buy cigarettes, covered in blood from head to toe. All the customers fled the store in an instant, leaving only me standing behind the counter, staring at him in shock. Victor lifted his eyelids slightly, thinking about calling the police. I said, "You're hurt." I helped Victor bandage his wound. He seemed terrifying, but when sitting quietly, he was very well behaved. After clumsily wrapping his arm, I told him, "All done." I got up to leave. Victor suddenly grabbed my wrist. He looked at me and said, "How much can you earn working here for a month?" I gave a number. Victor immediately quoted a price that was almost 100 times higher. I froze. "So much money. Then what do you need me for?" Victor looked at my stunned expression and suddenly grinned with a roguish charm. "To fall in love. Would you be willing?" I gazed at his blood-stained yet impossibly handsome face under the light and thought, why wouldn't I be willing? For the next 3 years, Victor was as unpredictable as the weather, like a mad dog, and only I knew how to smooth his ruffled fur. He remembers all my preferences. I dislike the smell of smoke, so he never smoked in front of me again. I'm afraid of the cold, so he would cancel all his plans in winter to take me to hot springs. I'm vain, so on my birthday, he set off fireworks all night, letting the entire city know that Natalie is turning 21 today. Under the fireworks that night, Victor held me tight. "Natalie, promise me you'll stay with me forever." Tears of emotion streamed down my face. "I promise, Victor. Why don't you propose right now? I'll say yes to that too." The fireworks in the night sky faded away. I woke up, the damp chill in the air telling me this was the basement. My hands were tied, and I instinctively struggled. I only struggled once before someone pressed down on my shoulders from behind. "Natalie, you can't escape." Victor untied his necktie and deftly knotted it around my hands. He wore a black shirt with a silver rose pinned to his chest. Such cheap jewelry seemed somewhat unworthy of his haute couture, but I recognized it. This was the last gift I had given Victor. Victor adjusted the knot and reached for the medicine nearby. "You're hurt. You need medicine," he said. I struggled desperately, yet Victor pinned me down. He tied me up securely, his bony fingers wandering over my body. In 3 years, Victor had learned every sensitive spot on my body. My entire body was trembling, my forehead damp with sweat, and tears of physiological response streamed down uncontrollably. Victor gently pressed his forehead against mine, just as he had countless times before, kissing away my tears. "Why are you crying?" I said. "Victor, could you let me go first? I need to save Lena. I don't know if Lena managed to escape. The worst-case scenario is that she's also fallen into Scott's hands." Victor said quietly. "What did you say? I didn't hear you clearly." I said, "Can you let me go?" Before I could finish, Victor silenced all my words with a kiss. I bit him desperately, and the taste of blood instantly spread in my mouth. But Victor seemed completely unfazed by the pain. After what felt like an eternity, he finally released me, wiping the blood from the corner of his lips with his thumb. "Natalie, you've changed. You used to be so well-behaved. never biting anyone before. He smiled, affectionately ruffling my hair. But it's fine like this now too. I love every version of you. Victor has imprisoned me. Most of the time. He personally stays with me. If he has unavoidable matters to attend to, over 20 bodyguards will stand guard outside together. There was no clock in the basement, and I had no idea how many days had passed. All I knew was that I had stopped eating and drinking. When Victor returned, I was already very weak. He grabbed my chin and forced the nutrient solution into my mouth. But within minutes of him feeding it to me, I would vomit it back up. Victor was furious. He untied the ropes binding me and pinned me against the wall. Do you hate me this much? Days without food or water had left me with no strength to resist Victor. I mechanically repeated, "Let me go. I need to save Lena." Victor released me. "Eat your meal properly, and I'll take you to see Lena." I abruptly raised my head, a glimmer of hope lighting up in my eyes. "Do you know Lena's whereabouts?" Victor absent-mindedly helped me change clothes. She's dying. Lena is dying." Those words made me burst into tears. My tears falling onto Victor's body. He straightened up as if scalded. Victor left me crying and went out. Half an hour later, he returned and picked me up. I struggled desperately. He held me down. "Don't move. I'll take you to see Lena." In Victor's car, I learned what had happened. That day, under my cover, Lena managed to escape. But this couldn't be considered a successful escape, because Scott had someone take away Stephen. When I was Victor taken to the seaside, Stephen was tied to a crane, suspended high above the ocean. If the crane released its hold, he would immediately plunge into the churning, white-capped sea. Scott used this method to force Lena to appear. Lena has arrived. At this very moment, she stands on the edge of a high cliff, just one step away from plunging into the sea. Compared to Scott's madness, Lena appears remarkably calm. She said, "Just throw him down. If he falls, I'll jump right after him." Scott stood dozens of meters away from Lena. He wanted to walk towards Lena, but for every step he took forward, Lena took a step back. The sea was right behind her. Scott didn't dare move. He stood there in silence for a long time. "Are you serious? Do you love him that much?" Scott was referring to Stephen. Lena didn't speak. Scott remained silent for a long time, as if he had much to say, but in the end only uttered one sentence. "Maggie is already dead." Lena's gaze remained unperturbed. Actually, both she and I already knew about this matter. After we left City J, Maggie also went missing. It was Victor who locked Maggie up. The Stewart family used some interrogation methods commonly employed by gangs. Maggie simply couldn't withstand them. In less than half an hour, she tearfully confessed that the kidnapping incident was staged by herself. "He's the second male lead. He should always loyally protect me, even if he marries another woman. His heart can only have me." Perhaps having lost her sanity in the end, Maggie shouted. Victor couldn't quite understand and couldn't be bothered to listen. He had people gather the surrounding evidence, packaged it together with Maggie's testimony, and made 2 copies. One was sent to Scott, and the other was delivered to the White family. This move of his directly severed the relationship between the 2 families. The White family, upon learning that Scott had caused the death of Lena for such an unworthy woman, immediately terminated all cooperation with the Stanford family. Yet Scott couldn't even spare a thought for these matters. He hated himself more than the White family did. Of all human emotions, regret is the most terrifying. Regret can morph into any other emotion, be it rage or hatred. Victor chose this very moment to hand Maggie over to Scott. He said, "Killing her would dirty my hands. So I leave her to you." Maggie was tortured by Scott for 3 months before finally escaping. She fled to her own home, hoping to find her man. The long-feuding Stewart family and Stanford family surprisingly found themselves on the same side. The second male lead and the antagonist formed an instant alliance, joining forces to eliminate the male and female leads. All of this, Victor also told me in the basement. Both Lena and I reacted almost identically. There's no response. Scott saw Lena remain silent and whispered urgently, Maggie is dead, and no one will stand between us anymore. So, will you come back with me? Lena smiled. She sat down at the edge of the cliff. The sea breeze rustled her red dress, like a fiercely blooming flower at the cliff's edge, radiant to the extreme. Without the slightest hesitation, Lena spoke. No. The sea wind howled between the two, making even a distance of 12 meters feel like the ends of the earth. Perhaps the wind was too strong. Scott's eyes turned red. This was the first time I saw the always aloof Scott yield. He said, Lena, I know I've wronged you. Would you rather die than forgive me? Lena raised her eyes. Her gaze was calm. Scott, there's nothing to forgive between us. I was your wife for 3 years and enjoyed many benefits. In that sense, I should thank you. Lena's tone was as polite as if she were addressing a stranger. Scott suddenly burst into tears. He said, Maggie told me one thing before she died. She said you and she were the same kind of person. So, those 3 years were all fake, right? A question without context. But Lena understood. Scott was asking her if she had never loved him. It was all just deception and performance. Lena had the word yes on the tip of her tongue several times, but ultimately couldn't bring herself to say it. Finally, she smiled, tears falling into the wind. How could that be, Scott? Damn it. I'm not a professional actress. If I could act that convincingly, it's only because I really loved you. Scott's expression changed in an instant. His face was as pale as porcelain, as if it might shatter the next second. Lena smoothed her skirt with a laugh, her eyes glimmering with memories. When I first arrived, my family made me attend a ball, and I knew nothing, feeling utterly embarrassed. To make matters worse, my stepmother and stepsister had tampered with that dress, causing it to split open with a huge tear during the ball. No one helped me. Everyone was just waiting to see me make a fool of myself. Lena looked at Scott. You were the only one who took off your suit jacket for me, then reached out your hand and asked if you could invite me to dance. All the girls there that day envied me. My stepmother and stepsister were so angry their eyes turned red. Lena smiled as she wiped away tears. So when I found out I was going to marry you, I was really happy. I tell myself, it's okay if you don't love me enough. I'll just love you more. As long as you don't abandon me, I'll stay with you forever. Scott's body swayed unsteadily in the sea breeze. If not for the bodyguard supporting him, he seemed on the verge of collapsing any second. Lena didn't look at Scott. She gazed at the boundless sea, her voice soft. Scott, you know what? Natalie is my best friend, and I want to do everything in this life with her. We promised to walk together. But after she told you about my car accident, I still couldn't help but have a thought in a fleeting moment. Lena turned to look at Scott. Her tears stretched into long lines by the sea breeze. I thought, if you heard I was in the hospital, you'd come running to me immediately. Then I won't leave. I'll give all the money I've prepared to Natalie, and stay here with you. Scott's lips were bleeding. Over the years, rumors had circulated in City J that he had stomach cancer, but they were never confirmed. Lena didn't see it. She raised her head and looked at the hanging Stephen. So, I won't go with you. Not because of Maggie or Stephen. Killing him today won't change anything. Because I don't love him that much. I simply don't love you anymore. This was the final verdict. Upon hearing these words, Scott seemed as if his soul had been drained. He turned around and slowly walked away. His shirt billowed emptily in the sea breeze. The bodyguards followed after him. Mr. Scott. Scott coughed up a mouthful of blood. Then another. He fell backward. Mr. Scott. Amidst the chaos, Lena took the opportunity to rescue Stephen. She spotted Victor's car in the distance, and me sitting inside it. Natalie. Lena went berserk. She immediately understood what was happening and rushed over to save me. Victor did not give her a chance. He held me in his arms and said to the driver, "Turn around." The car sped away, leaving Lena far behind. Lena had obviously called the police. As the car raced down the highway, we could hear the distant wail of police sirens behind us. The driver's expression changed in an instant. Victor calmly kissed the top of my head. "It's fine. We just need to shake them off." The driver gritted his teeth. He didn't dare to advise, but he had no choice. "Yan Master Chi, this isn't City J. If you get into trouble here, there's no one above to protect you." Victor acted as if he didn't hear. Holding me tightly, he caressed my face and whispered in my ear, "Sweetheart, I'm not like Scott." Look. When he heard Lena didn't love him anymore, he was so devastated that he gave up immediately. "I'm different. Even if you don't love me now, you will in the future. Even if you don't love me, you'll have to die with me." He kissed me. "You promised to stay with me forever, right?" The car was silent for a long time. I said, "Victor, I did promise to stay with you forever, but only if you would marry me." Victor's body stiffened slightly. Those were the good old days. So brief that both he and I nearly forgot them. Back then, I hadn't realized I was just a substitute, foolishly pouring all my passion into Victor. Victor, my best friend, bought a huge pink diamond. "I love it so much. Could you use a pink diamond for my engagement ring when you propose?" "Victor, today I saw a little girl as cute as a sticky rice ball. Can we have a daughter in the future?" Victor wrapped his arms around my waist and planted a kiss there. "Everything's fine. Whatever you say." Those purely good times are gone forever. Inside the car, I mustered my last bit of strength to kiss Victor. "How about it? Leave your past behind and marry me. Then I'll keep my promise and stay with you forever." Lena found me sitting by a small park filled with roses. Lost in thought, she rushed over, hugged me, and cried, "You scared me to death. Woo woo woo. If you died, I really wouldn't know what to do." I pushed her away. "Get lost. Don't think I didn't hear you once considered choosing Scott over me." Lena cried her fill and listened to me recount what had happened. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "So Victor just let you go like that?" I said, "Yeah. Isn't he crazy? I thought he'd rather die than be apart from you." I smiled as the wind blew past my eyes, my heart feeling hollow. "I understand Victor. Even if he were willing to die with me, he wouldn't marry me. No one understands Victor's ambition better than I do. Victor is the Stewart family's illegitimate child. To be more precise, his mother was once his father's secretary. Victor's birth was the result of a rape, but no one believed it. Everyone cursed Victor's mother, calling her a flirtatious secretary who seduced her boss, trying to secure her position by getting pregnant. Amid endless cold stares, Victor's mother died young. At that time, Victor was only 7 or 8 years old. He kowtowed before his mother's grave, and from that moment on, his life's goal was to climb the social ladder at any cost. Though his origins were questionable, given his current immense wealth and influence, many noble daughters were willing to marry into his family. I was just reminding him that he's caused such a scene for my sake. Does he no longer care about the decades of struggle he endured to get here? He didn't spare me. He spared himself. I whispered to Lena. For the next 2 years, I never saw Victor again. It was as if this person had completely vanished from my life. Not a trace was left. Every day, Lena and I would laugh and joke, living in a drunken stupor. Occasionally, I would ask her, "Were those words you said to Scott back then true? Or were they just to save Stephen?" Lena would never hear me, immediately grabbing the hand of the new male model beside her. "Your palm lines are good. A sign of wealth." I stopped pressing further, letting it go with a laugh. A long time passed again. I finally met Victor. At that time, I was taking a walk in a park with Lena, enjoying the breeze, when suddenly I saw a motorcycle parked by the roadside. Turning my gaze, I saw Victor. He was wearing a black shirt, still handsome and somber. He walked over. What a coincidence. He wasn't here for me. Just a chance encounter. I heard that the daughter of a deputy governor happened to see Victor once and fell head over heels in love with him. For Victor. This is a great opportunity. I asked him, coming to see your girlfriend? He nodded. Yeah, why not go? I'm a bit nervous. Gonna have a smoke here. He waved the menthol cigarette in his hand, then instinctively stubbed it out. It was his habitual move. I have respiratory issues. He initially complained I was being delicate, but later he'd immediately put out his cigarette whenever he saw me. We fell into silence together for a while. Victor said casually, "Long time no see. Wanna catch up?" Lena glanced at me. I nodded. Lena then voluntarily left. "I'll wait for you at the cafe." I walked with Victor for a while. We passed an ice cream stand along the way, with a huge cone topped with several scoops of ice cream. If it were me in the past, I would have insisted on Victor buying it for me. This time I didn't ask. Victor took the initiative to buy one anyway. He was about to hand it to me. I paused, then smiled and said, "Thank you, but I'm pregnant, and the doctor advised me not to eat this recently. It might just be my imagination." Victor's hand trembled violently, but almost immediately, he smiled as if nothing had happened. "I see," he said. He held the giant ice cream cone and said quietly, "I'm going to see my girlfriend now," he said. A little boy ran over, staring eagerly at Victor's ice cream. I said, "Give it to the kid. I can't finish it anyway." Victor paused and said, "Okay." He handed the ice cream to the little boy. The little boy said sweetly, "Thank you, big brother." Holding the ice cream, he ran off into the distance. The setting sun at this moment gilds the distant roses with a seemingly unfading golden hue. I hear Victor say, "Goodbye." I also say, "Goodbye." He puts on his helmet, mounts his motorcycle, and disappears into the horizon where the sun sets. Lena had somehow appeared by my side without me noticing. "Why did you lie to him? I'm not married, let alone pregnant." I sighed. He came for a blind date. This marriage alliance is extremely important to him. The Stewart family has always wanted him to marry a wife with political connections to whitewash his less than clean background. This opportunity is so crucial. So, let's not distract him anymore. Lena hugged me. "Does it hurt?" "It doesn't hurt." "Do you really not love Victor anymore? Scott has terminal stomach cancer and wants to see you. Are you really not considering visiting him? Let's go. Have a drink. Let's go." Victor sometimes feels that Natalie understands him very well. Other times, he feels she doesn't understand him enough. However, this lack of understanding is also Victor's own deliberate doing. After all, Natalie's role is merely that of a lover, and no powerful figure would allow a lover to understand them in every aspect. For example, Natalie doesn't know that Victor was able to rise from being a bastard son, locked in a mental hospital, to eventually becoming the successor of the Stewart family. All thanks to the help of a certain elder brother. That big brother had been involved with gangs since his teens, daring to storm enemy strongholds alone with just a watermelon knife in hand. Possessing all the qualities of a formidable leader, he was City J's most notorious figure. Victor, with his help, first secured his footing in the gang, then leveraged all available forces to gradually eliminate his brothers one by one, until their fathers will named him the sole successor. Victor assumed the big brother would share in this power with him, but the big brother didn't. The elder brother seemed to suddenly settle down at the age of 36. He said he had a woman he deeply loved, who was pregnant and afraid of the violence, wanting him to retire from the underworld and live a peaceful life from then on. If it were the current Victor, he would surely advise the elder brother that there's no such thing as retiring from the underworld. You either stay the course to the bitter end, or turning back means death. But back then, he didn't understand this truth. After the elder brother retired, his enemies came knocking. They kidnapped the elder brother's wife and demanded that he go alone to pay the ransom. The once calm and ruthless man seemed to have lost his mind, doing whatever the kidnappers said. By the time Victor found the elder brother, he had been dumped by the roadside, with not a single bone left unbroken. Miraculously, he was still clinging to life. Upon seeing Victor, his first words were, "Is she okay?" Victor knew he was asking about that woman. After a pause, he said, "It's nothing." Only then did the elder brother feel relieved. He looked at this young man whom he had personally trained and left his final words of guidance. "Brother, remember my words. If you want to climb higher, you can't have any weaknesses." When a man truly and sincerely gives his heart to a woman, others call it true love. But in our line of work, it's called a fatal weakness. Don't tell your sister-in-law about my death. Just say I fell for another woman, left her some money, and told her not to come looking for me. Victor nodded in agreement. And with that assurance, the boss died peacefully. Victor stood in prolonged silence before the boss's corpse. He lied to his elder brother. The enemies had left no survivors at all. The elder brother's wife was also dead, her body lying just a few dozen meters away from him. Just moments ago, Victor had shielded her with his own body. Victor arranged the funeral for his elder brother and his wife, then slaughtered the enemy's entire family. For nearly a decade to come, Victor held firmly to his elder brother's words. He climbed higher than his elder brother. He couldn't afford any weaknesses. Rumors spread that the girl who listened to him play piano outside the mental hospital was his unattainable love. Victor couldn't help but laugh every time he heard it. How ridiculous. He was someone who dared to raise a knife against his own father. How important could a little girl, who merely listened to him play piano twice outside, possibly be? But he was happy to let the rumors spread. Isn't it better to have a false weakness than to have none at all? Moreover, Victor would think that if the outside world believes he loves that so-called white moonlight, then Natalie would be even safer. Natalie has been with Victor the longest among all women. Victor remembers his elder brother's words. Women can be kept, can be played with, but must never be loved. Victor never expected to fall into this trap. For 3 years, he had deluded himself into avoiding this question, until Natalie asked him at the height of his passion, "Do you love me?" Victor was on the verge of blurting out, "Yes." He immediately came to his senses, feeling a bone-chilling fear. The shattered bones of his elder brother and the corpse of his pregnant wife not far away appeared before his eyes like a nightmare. Victor stood up, unable to face this reality. He could only flee in panic. He knew that behind him, Natalie was crying. She was very quiet, crying almost without a sound, but his heart ached with each sob. Victor felt like he was finished. He felt the need to detach, to break free. He couldn't see Natalie again until he was sure he could remain indifferent. He stayed away from the villa for 3 days and met Maggie to distract himself. He grew impatient with Maggie's reminiscing. The only thing that interested him was her relationship with Scott. It is said Scott repeatedly abandoned Miss Lena for this girl. Then perhaps he could indirectly control Scott by manipulating this girl. Just as Victor felt his heart truly belonged to his career, Natalie died. Victor sped all the way there on his motorcycle, nearly plunging both himself and the bike into the river. The elders of the Stewart family were absolutely furious. Victor's actions rendered years of meticulous planning futile. Previously, they had gone to great lengths to cleanse Victor's tainted background by lining up numerous noble daughters as potential marriage candidates. In the marriages of such circles, having a lover is inconsequential, and harboring a white moonlight, unattainable love is equally trivial. But to go mad over a substitute to the point of nearly losing your own life, that's something that truly matters. Victor almost destroyed the plan he had been scheming for years in a single day. Yet he couldn't even bring himself to care. Sitting by the river, only one thought occupied his mind. Natalie isn't dead. Definitely not dead. He had no proof, but he just felt it. His heart was still beating. So the person he loved must exist somewhere in this world. Thus, while Scott had completely given up on himself, drinking himself into stomach cancer, Victor was tirelessly searching the world for her. When the Stewart family didn't have enough manpower, He barged into Scott's house. "Lend me your people," Scott said. "On what grounds?" Victor said. "Take it or leave it." He turned and walked away. Scott helplessly called out to stop him. "Use whoever you need. Just go and assign them." Victor finally found Natalie. But Natalie said he must retire from his life of crime and marry her. Victor used to think all women were like idiots. Why did they all want to get married? But now, aboard the private jet back to City J, he couldn't help but let the corners of his mouth curl upward. A peculiar sense of happiness flooded his heart. Victor suddenly remembered his elder brother. This time, he didn't recall his brother's shattered bones. Instead, he remembered the smile on his brother's face at the moment of death. So it turned out he didn't regret his choice after all. Victor returned to City J. He had to do work 10,000 times more meticulous than his elder brother. He didn't care about himself. But he couldn't implicate Natalie. He carried out extremely meticulous work, splitting his identity, transferring assets, and ensuring security. He needed to ensure that after retiring from his life of crime, no enemies would threaten Natalie. This work took him 2 years. 2 years later, Victor could finally set off. He left everything behind in City J. He was no longer Victor. Just anyone would do, as long as he could be with Natalie. But Natalie didn't wait for him. She was pregnant. Victor mustered up the courage, wanting to ask her who her husband was and whether she was happy now. He had too many questions. But in the end, he asked nothing. Victor left. The Stewart family was desperately urging him, saying the young lady of J City was eager to see him. For a moment, Victor thought, this could work. Go on blind dates. Marry a wife who loves him more than he loves her. Cleanse his background. And play the political game. After all, countless men live like this. But at the last moment, Victor remembered Scott. If he continues down this path, he'll simply become the next Scott. Victor suddenly turned the car around. The setting sun was left behind him. The evening breeze outrun. He was no longer a youth, uncertain if he could ever catch up to the girl he loved again. But he drove in the direction where the girl was, never looking back. The little boy, holding an ice cream, hopped and skipped his way to a little girl. A very handsome big brother and a very pretty big sister gave this to me, the little boy said, puffing out his chest. Here, you can have it. The little girl took it and asked, why are you giving it to me? The little boy said, don't ask so many questions. Just eat it. She took a bite of the ice cream and suddenly let out a cry. The ice cream had melted. A small silver rose brooch fell out of the cone. On the tip of the brooch's tail hung a massive, sparkling pink diamond ring. The little boy held the rose brooch. The little girl held the ring. They turned to look back together. The sun has already set, leaving only a garden of roses blooming boundlessly. The end.